Welcome to Real Estate Real Talk with me, Skyleigh. I'm a realtor, coach, and founder of Forever Kamloops and Forever Kelowna Real Estate Groups and the creator of Elevation Real Estate, the realtor coaching platform. After nearly a decade in this industry, I've built a business that gives me more freedom, more income, and more time with the people I love. And now I'm here to help other realtors do the same. This podcast is for agents who want to build a thriving real estate business without burning out. We talk about scaling smart and building systems so you can buy back your life, because life shouldn't feel like all work and no play. And if you're a buyer or seller tuning in, consider this your backstage pass. You'll hear unfiltered conversations with top agents and industry pros, giving you the same insights we share behind closed doors. Knowledge is power, and the more you know, the better you can advocate for yourself and work with someone who truly has your back. Let's get real. Okay, today we are with David Fairbairn. Am I right that time?
Yeah, you got it. Nailed it.
Ah, thank God. I know that we had a recap and I was like saying it in my head 7 times. Do you have, just quick before I do your intro, do you have a trick to remember people's names? Because in any business, I think it's important to remember people's names. So do you have a trick?
I'm great with names. I'm not great with faces. Sometimes I'll meet somebody and then I'll have to see them a few times. Or I've had it sometimes where somebody will they'll wear glasses and then I see them without glasses. I have trouble recognizing them. But it's really funny because somebody called me a little while ago and they were like, "Oh yeah, you did an inspection for us back in 2016." And they told me the address of the property. I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's the one with the hot water tank issue." And I actually remembered 9 years ago this really technical issue in their house.
That's amazing.
But I wouldn't have recognized them at all. So
you remember the house. That's impressive. I try really hard to remember people's names and pronounce them correctly. And I know that there's tips and tricks that people have. There was one that I had heard for remembering someone's name, and that was just to make a nickname or like a joke about it. For example, there is a Thai place here in Kelowna that we went to, and the woman, so smart. She introduced herself. Her name's Ploy, by the way. If anybody ever has a chance to go to Pick Thai, it is dynamite. Not even just because she remembered my name, which is obviously a different name. So that was impressive on its own. But she even made it so that we could remember her name, which was Ploy, because then she tied it back to, she's like, yeah, like employee. And I'm like, I'm never going to forget that now. I'm like, I need to like come up with something funny for my name or just to cement it in. Do you know what I mean? And then the food was also amazing. If you guys like hot pot, so good. But anyways, now that we've digressed.
That. Yeah, a little game. Yeah. Little game to remember the name. Yeah.
Yeah.
We come across some different names, like all different cultures.
It's crazy. Yeah, you need little tricks to remember, but
and not everybody's named Bob or Jim, so
we segued off. But I'm excited for our conversation today, David, and I am really grateful that you said yes to being a guest on the podcast. You said that you have been a home inspector for what, since 2012, you said?
Yeah, 2012. Yeah. So 13 years.
Yeah, it's been a while for you. Holy cow. And then you said that you hold a power engineering license, a commercial building license, and then you're also an instructor with Ashton College, which is actually like the licensing college for people to get their home inspection ticket, which is wildly impressive. I know how hard that course is, and Ashton is like one of the upper levels of making sure that everybody knows the ins and outs of a house really well. So if you do get an inspector that has gone through Ashton College, is that there's more than one college, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you can do, there's about 4 or 5 colleges you can attend right now.
Okay,
it's just one.
But for inspectors, I thought that there was a number, and Ashton is like one of the top ones, isn't it?
Yeah, I did my inspection training at Ashton. I had a great experience with them, and I ended up doing some promotional material for them later. And then they contacted me in 2021 and said, yeah, we'd like to actually bring you on as an instructor for the course. So that was great because I got to go back to the school where I went. They're right downtown Vancouver. And then there's obviously other technical colleges and a few other places you can do it, but it has a lot to do with the curriculum. Are they teaching, like I like the Carson Dunlop curriculum, which is quite thorough. And that's what Ashton was offering. But it has a lot to do with the instructors too. And obviously I'm an instructor, so I trust that the students that came out of there are going to be ready for the world.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And then I think I told you I had a little bit of a backstage pass to seeing what the Carson Dunlop curriculum looked like. And it was pretty intensive actually. And like the scores that you had to get in order to move to the next component or to not have to redo the component was pretty pretty intense.
I actually learned a lot just from going back through the material after 10 years. There was a lot of, oh, wow, like, wait a second, I'm doing this every day, but can I calculate the compressor rating based on the rated line amps? I forgot that calculation. We don't use it that much.
Yeah, no kidding. Obviously, your role is to support consumers with buying and selling real estate, similar to myself. But our conversation today, I think, is really important, not even just on the consumer side of things, but also on the realtor side of things, which this podcast mostly is about talking to other realtors. And as you probably know, is that I am a coach with high performance agents. And so there's a lot of people that I run into that are newer in the industry or even have been in the industry for a while, and some of their best practices are not best practices. And so having you here talking about the different things with home inspections and like how to pick a home inspector, even from a real estate perspective, and like us being able to send clients to you because you're a trusted advisor for that specific part of the transaction, I think is absolutely amazing, like I said. So thank you so much for being here. And I want to like dive into a couple different things. So whether you're listening to this podcast for consumer purposes and that you're buying and selling real estate, this is again like Backstage Pass. You're going to hear like candid conversations of things you should look for, not even just in your home, but like in your home inspector as well, because not everyone is built equally, and that is throughout every single industry you're ever going to run into. So make sure you ask some like really good questions before you hire the inspector, because it's a massive investment, right? So make sure your inspector knows certain things and that they've done their due diligence to make sure that they are fully qualified. I think that there's a number of people that kind of get through the course at the skin of their teeth, which is not great. And then, yeah, if you're a realtor, there's going to be some really good things that you should be looking for in the inspectors that you bring on, and things that you should probably notice as a realtor. So, David, I don't know if you feel this way or not, but for me, I'm not an inspector, and I will 100% go through a house and I will be like, I'm not an inspector. We're going to hire an inspector to do the due diligence, but there's certain things that I can see that I want us to say, hey, can you explain this to us? And being able to actually say that before we even get to writing an offer and then paying the $500+ for the inspection, I think is very important. And it helps us get our clients from point A to point B and not have burnout around transactions and stuff. So I think number one, what would be like the number one thing that you think that realtors and consumers should look for in an inspector?
There's the trust. You have to trust your inspector. And so typically that's going to be from word of mouth. We did a lot of marketing earlier on. I've got some really good online presence, and we had some paid ads, things like that. But it's really the trust. Ask around, talk to people, talk to realtors that you respect, talk to tradespeople, talk to builders, talk to other inspectors in other cities. And typically word will get around if there's a good inspector, and if there's not so good inspector, word travels pretty quickly. So we're blessed with a great reputation. We've got our phone just rings. People say, okay, bring in Fairburn inspections. They're going to check the house carefully and not miss anything. So we've got a really good reputation, but it takes time to build that. So for a lot of inspectors starting out, they might have some great marketing. They might have some great social media. Talk to people they've inspected for. Talk to people around town and just try to get a feel for what the reputation is, because reputation does go a long way. And in our industry, I like to say that we are considered the building experts, and your inspector should be able to have a really deep knowledge of the area. We were talking earlier, Skyleigh, we inspect across the whole Lower Mainland, and there's all these different pockets of, you've got the North Shore, and then you've got some area down in Richmond that's below sea level, and then you've got areas that are like, you got downtown condos, and to know each area is really key. One of the things I like to do is before we have somebody go out to the inspection, I'll pull up the listing the night before. We'll pull up records we have on that building or that neighborhood, and then we'll see, okay, what kind of issues are we going to come up in this area? What are you going to expect here? I'll give you another example. There's an area of Vancouver Vancouver's kind of, it's got a whole bunch of these. They're called peat areas. And you can actually download a map from the city of Vancouver, and these areas were basically bogs that were backfilled in usually the early 1900s.
Oh.
And if you drive down the road, you'll see the fences are all settling. The road's really wavy. A lot of the houses are sinking. And so that's something that's completely unique to that one little area of Vancouver. And so that's something we're going to keep an eye out for. So it's really local knowledge and training. We do tons and tons of training. Not every inspector is going to be doing training all the time. Some of them, they finish a course and they rely on some of the knowledge they had from maybe a previous career. But for me, it's about ongoing training, staying on top of the industry. So yeah, ask around.
Yeah,
Short answer.
things change a lot. I think that the ongoing training is really important for realtors too. Like we have to do so many credits every 2 years and like reapply for our license every 2 years. I don't know if that's the same for you guys. What do you
Yeah,
guys have
so
to
in
do?
BC, we have to be licensed with Consumer Protection BC. That's the licensing entity for British Columbia for home inspectors. Some areas, a lot of people are surprised about. There's only a couple provinces where our industry is actually licensed. So if you go to a lot of
I
provinces,
didn't
they
know
actually
that.
have zero home inspector licensing.
What?
Off the top of my head, I think it's Ontario, Alberta, and BC require licensing. If you go to Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Northwest Territories, PEI, you can just literally, as far as I know, this might change. It changes all the time, but you can just literally print out a business card and presto, you're a home inspector.
Yeah, you're like, hey, I renovated a few houses. I'm an
Yeah,
inspector.
exactly.
Maybe that's where so many of these horror stories come from because there are a lot of like misconceptions about what inspectors can and can't do and how the inspection is supposed to go. But I wonder if a lot of that comes from these horror stories that probably happen from people who are printing out business cards and being like, hey, like I've owned a home for 20 years. I'm going to be a home inspector.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. And a lot of states as well. If you go to the US, a lot of states have no licensing regulations. In BC, luckily, we have a really nice system where, so just to get your license, there's a huge process. We're talking about going to school. You have to complete an approved course. You have to join, or you have to complete an exam for an association. You have to get insurance. You have to be bonded. You have to go through 50 to 100 hours of field training with an approved inspector. And so there are a lot of requirements prior to becoming certified. Now, we don't actually have a specific requirement for continuing education every year. That's something that I've been trying to champion, is getting a requirement there to actually have your license. You have to complete a number of continuing education hours per year. I obviously, like, I can do 30 continuing education hours a year easily. It's no problem for us. And we have a lot of courses that are offered through our association. But right now, it's not quite the same as real estate, because I know you'll have seminars periodically, right, where it's mandatory to attend it. Is that right?
Yeah, so there are a couple things that we have to do every single time we renew our license. So every 2 years, we have to automatically do FinTrack every 2 years, which is like anti-money laundering, and then we have to do legal update every 2 years. Those ones are like mandatory, like you have to do those. And then there are a bunch of other courses that they have that they also host. Like lots of times they'll rent out like rooms and hotels and stuff like that, like those, not the ballroom, but those big kind of banquet rooms, and then they'll have people come in to present, and it's like a course that we can take. Sometimes they throw free ones, sometimes yeah, but there's lots of different opportunities for like growth and education, all that kind of stuff. I think it's great.
For us, it's so critical, because I'll give you an example, like the Vancouver building bylaw. They have their own code just for that one city. A lot of people don't realize that. You've got the BC building code, and then you've got the Vancouver building bylaw, and that's actually just unique to that one city. And it changed about maybe 3 times in as many years. They actually banned natural gas heat. So this is about a year and a half, 2 years ago. They banned natural gas heat. So you couldn't heat your house using natural gas. And then they undid the ban for, I'm going to say, about 3 months.
What were they
And then
wanting
they
to replace it with?
reinstated
Were
the
they
ban
wanting to
again.
do all electric?
Yeah, the idea is that I won't go into the exact reason, because
You know, like talk like an hour about why this happened. I'm
yeah,
sure.
I mean,
So they wanted everyone to do electric, and then they took the ban away.
yeah, they thought that maybe making everybody have a heat pump was somehow better. I've got my opinions on that. I don't want to get too into the weeds, but yeah, it was a last minute. It was a scrap together idea, and then they reneged on it, and then they went back. So now you actually can't heat your house with natural gas. A new build, like if you build a new house in Vancouver. And so continuing education is critical for us, because it's like you just wouldn't know that otherwise. So you really have to stay on top of this. And there's a lot of different organizations that put on different seminars on building codes and trades and heating and cooling and things like that. But there's nothing that's done, because we don't have a board So there's nothing that's done internally with home inspectors. So we have to seek it out.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, so I said the word misconception a minute ago, and now I like wrote a note down that I'm like, I need to ask you this. What I know from like my side within the industry, like what people say about inspectors and things that I have to say in order to get people to do a home inspection. But I'm curious to know like what your take is on like the misconceptions that consumers and like possibly other realtors have around inspectors and getting a home inspection. What are some things we can debunk
Oh,
exactly?
yeah, that's easy. Easy. The biggest misconception, like hands down, is that you don't need one. And I know the communication is great from the agents that we work with. It's usually they're pushing the inspections. So you need to have one. But in a hot market, I'm old enough to remember 2015, 2016 in Vancouver. It was crazy. There was just almost no inspections happening. It dropped to 20%. And now it's in normal balance market. It's about maybe 80% roughly. But in 2021, it took a dip again when a lot of people are saying, okay, you need to go in subject free. And the other thing would be new construction. We've got a ton of new construction around here. There's duplexes going up all over the place, a lot of new condos completing. You have to get those inspected. Just because the city said it's illegal and it's safe doesn't mean it's a good house. That's a huge misconception. I've heard it repeated so many times. I'll be standing in the house and somebody will say, oh, I told them they didn't need to get an inspection because it's a new build. I'm just shocked because the stuff we see in new construction would really surprise you. Just
Can I tell
amazing
you a quick
stuff.
story? I'll tell
Yeah,
you a quick
yeah.
story because I have heard that conversation a lot too. And so then there was this new development that I was going through. I was pregnant at the time, so I don't know if it was like a vertigo thing or what. I don't know if it was because I was pregnant or maybe I was just like really sensitive to different depth perceptions of things. But yeah, we're going through this new complex in town. There was multiple different units, different floor plans. We're going through and I don't know if the occupancy certificate was signed off yet, but as for anybody who doesn't know this, when you have a new construction home, you have to have different phases of the build signed off on before they can start the next section. So it's like first they have to pour the foundation and then that has to be signed off and then they have to get into actually like building the house and doing the framing and that has to be signed off before you can put the drywall, right? So you have to have all these steps signed off on. So it should be that each thing is done correctly before it keeps going.
Should.
So this was shocking because I'm walking through and I'm like, man, this house is like, it was really rough. And I was like, it's new. How is this possible? Whoever was building it, whoever was the tradespeople were coming in, they were like, no, oh, there's holes in the walls. The railings were broken. I was like, these people like bringing other things in were just like breaking the stuff that was already there, which I understand how hard it is to keep things like buttoned up as you're doing construction because I've renovated a few homes. And I'm like, as you're like doing another project, you're dinging up some of the stuff that you've already done. So like I get it. But the amount of like damage was just pure neglect. And then as I was walking down the stairs, this is the part that I'm like, how is this possible? One of the steps, the rise versus run was off, and I almost fell down the stairs. And I
Wow.
was like, this is crazy. Cause like it's
Wow.
new construction. How is that possible? But I guess like when they're signing off on the things, they're not going and measuring each step. But when I was walking down the stairs, I almost lost my footing and I was like, oh my God. I was like, was that just me? Am I just like pregnant and like top heavy and falling forward? Like what's going on? And no, my clients were like, no, we felt it too, but we just didn't, we thought we were crazy and they didn't say anything. But then I
Wow.
almost fell. So, anyways,
That's
inspections are
crazy.
well,
For a new build to have the stairs be out. If there's one thing the city inspectors are supposed to catch, it's that. No,
what?
that's like day one of city inspector training. If you take out a tape measure, you measure the stairs. It's not that hard.
It was shocking. But
Yeah.
this was around the time, as you said, like as different years go on, there's certain things that happen. This was a time of year where all of these new builders were popping up. It was like all of a sudden people realized there was money in construction. And so then all of these new builders were popping up out of nowhere, or like people from the lower mainland or Ontario builders were like coming into the Okanagan and Kamloops and building because the population growth was too much that we weren't keeping up. So the amount of permits that were getting pulled was quite substantial. There was like record breaking years of permits being pulled. And the builders in town couldn't keep up. So there was other builders coming in. And yeah, I remember this one was like an out of town builder that was here. And I was like, I don't know how long they had their license for, but whew.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. And that's such a good like example of this, like I said, this misconception that like just because it got passed by the city, therefore you're okay. I'll just give you this other example. I
Yeah.
was at a house in just like Vancouver West, kind of Arbutus area. It's a nice little duplex. It's going to keep built in 20. So I guess they completed around 2021, 22, but it's out on the market for a while. And I'm going up the front stairs to go into the inspection. I'm noticing there's a lot of movement in the stairs when I'm walking up. So I take my flashlight and I go underneath, and the deck has been built using drywall screws. Like, to give you an idea, you have to nail your framing, obviously,
So
but
you're using drywall screws in
drywall
the
screws, these little
framing for
tiny,
the deck.
yeah, to hold the deck together. Not every single piece of wood was held together with drywall screws, but all the joist joist hangers were all drywall screws,
They
and then
ran
there
out
was
of like
drywall screws to
framing
hold the
screws.
stairs onto the actual landing, like the stringer to the landing.
Oh,
And the builder actually came by, and I was like, what, dude, what is this? No way. And he's like, show me in the code where it says that. I'm like, I don't need to show you in the code. This is crazy. Nobody would do this. This has been prohibited for probably since 1982, probably before I was born. You haven't been able to do this. And he actually argued. He's like, no, it's fine. City passed it. And then we found out later the city never actually looked at the stairs because it was 2021, I think, when they were doing their inspections, and it was COVID. And so not a lot of on-site inspections were taking place. And so really amazing, the kind of stuff that they get to slip through the cracks. And that's such a good example you gave of like the stairs being out, just basic stuff like that. And any qualified inspector can spot these issues. And it's such a great way to have peace of mind on your new purchase. You're buying $1 million property,
yeah.
and the inspection's what, 600, $700? It's probably the cheapest part of the whole process. And now you know you got your peace of mind. It's the best insurance you can buy.
Yeah, totally. That is definitely a misconception that I've heard. And I will tell you one that I hear all the time as well. And I am like, ooh, no. And you can debunk this for everybody who is listening as
I'm
well.
ready. I'm
Okay.
ready.
So the thing that I hear a lot is that people don't need to get a home inspection because the inspector isn't a professional in any of the trades. So the likelihood of them finding anything wrong is they're like, oh, they're just looking superficially, if that makes sense. That I've heard
Yeah.
that so many times. And I'm like, okay, their job is to look through and find the things that need further investigation. I'm like, that is like the cheapest insure, like that is the cheapest thing that you can pay for like blanket. I'm gonna look for all
Yeah.
of the things that could be a problem. And then if it needs further investigation, then we say, okay, you need to have a certified electrician come in. And usually the electrician find,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah. I'm shocked that anybody would say that.
there's so many people that do. They're like, we'll just, there's no point. Like, we'll just get our, I could have noticed that stuff. And I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
I
Okay.
don't think so.
I would almost wonder if they've maybe gone through a couple really lousy home
I,
inspections. Like,
I think so. Or
you
that
know,
like they've heard stories again of like people who've bought in a house and then there's things that they find after living there. But the thing is that like an inspector goes through and like you guys go through with a fine tooth comb, but there's certain things that only pop up if you live there, right? Like this, for this
yeah.
one example, I had a client that they did their home inspection. The inspector actually found some like things that obviously we would have never found. Like the deck needed to be completely redone. It looked good on the top, but when you looked underneath, he pulled the soffitting down from underneath that was covering, it was hiding all of the moisture problems that were underneath.
Wow.
And so we're like, oh, thank goodness he found that. But then afterwards, they ended up living there for the whole year and they realized that there wasn't enough insulation in, it was a split level, but in the one section, you wouldn't be able to do a thorough enough investigation for that section because there was no access points and you guys are limited, right? So it's not your fault. And
Yeah.
it's like a material latent defect. It's something you can't find due to reasonable inspection. So they had to live there for a whole year to realize that, oh, this isn't insulated. We are paying far too much money for our utilities. What is going on? Where are we losing energy? And then they found it, but it had to be
Wow.
winter.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And you
people
wouldn't
just need to
find it in the
blame
summertime.
someone. Anyway, stuff
Wow.
like that
Yeah.
happens, and then now all of a sudden it's your guys' fault where, oh, they didn't find the thing. Oh my gosh, look at my cat.
Yeah. Oh, he's a cutie.
She has like massive hands. Like you can see she has 8 toes. Like ridiculous.
That glass is doing a lot of work.
Stella, get out of here. She's like the mascot. I just like
Yeah.
walk her and pretend like she's not there. But yeah, so that happens
Yeah.
a lot too. And obviously debunk it every time. I'm like, no, 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 no. But
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. And that's really want to, I tell people this is HGTV. I don't know if you watch a lot of the shows on there,
I
but
used to. My mom was like addicted to it. I don't
oh,
really watch TV. I don't have cable, but
it's
my
a
mom
guilty
was
pleasure.
like, love HGTV.
I actually love it. I love those shows. They're so much fun to watch. And I sit there like an armchair quarterback and I go, okay, that guy has no idea what he's doing.
They
Or,
make stories about it, right? Like they
well,
have to.
they
It's
got
like
to make it
Highway Through Hell.
exciting. And
Like
yeah,
that show even they have to like make things seem worse than they are. Like I have family members that are tow truck drivers. The Highway Through Hell is so fabricated. It literally shows like the worst of the worst and people not knowing what they're doing and doing stupid stuff just for like stunts on TV.
yeah,
It was probably
yeah.
the same.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I, like I said, it's a guilty pleasure. I enjoy watching it, but the damage that's done to the perception of home inspectors and what we actually do. I think there's that show. It's like Joe the Home Inspector or something like that. And I've never actually seen it. I can't work up the fortitude to actually watch. I'm going to get too mad if I watch it. But they show people opening up the walls, putting drones, putting sewer cameras down, stuff that most home inspections just don't do.
Yeah. They're like
And
looking at holes in
you
walls.
know,
Like,
yeah, drilling holes in the walls. I remember that there was that show, Mike Holmes Inspections, and he goes, okay, this owner moved in and they noted heating problems a year after they moved in or whatever. And he goes and he cuts out the flooring and they discovered that part of the ductwork was actually made of cardboard, which is hilarious and insane. It's a great find. But no home inspector would find that unless they were putting cameras down every duct. There's just no way to find it. And you're only there for
yeah.
a couple of hours. And so you
Yeah,
really have
a
to,
homeowner is not going to allow you to cut holes in their stuff.
yeah, they haven't bought the house yet. Yeah. What if the person walks away and I cut a hole in a wall and all of a sudden they go, oh, I'm not going to buy it, and now you get a hole in your wall and your house is still for sale to somebody else. So really framing the perception of what the inspection actually is. It's a visual home inspection. It involves just looking. We're not required to move furniture out of the way or open up panels in the walls or pull back all the siding material to check for. We definitely have little tricks that we do. You have to frame it the right way. We're not magicians. We don't have x-ray vision. Well, a lot of
Yeah.
people just think, okay, if any issues show up afterwards, after the inspection, therefore he missed it. No, he was there for 3 hours. He did what he was hired to do. It's a visual inspection. So
Yeah.
it's really that framing of what we actually do. We're generalists. We look at the house from a general point of view. And if we see something, like you said, electrical, I walk into the electrical panel. I don't have an electrical ticket. I know a lot about electrical. I open it up. There's some handyman wiring in there. We're going to call out for an electrician
Yeah, totally.
because it's potentially unsafe. And then the client brings the electrician in, has the work done, and we save you probably more than the inspection costs. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly the way that I frame it too. And I'm like, you're supposed to find the things that are questionable and that we can do further investigation because you never know when you start opening things up, you just don't know how much it's going to cost. So obviously making sure you have all your due diligence done. Like we want to know that so that we can get the other professionals in and get an extension on the contract if we need it to do for like even if, for example, I did an inspection the other week and I didn't realize this, but the seller had turned off the power and the
Oh,
water
wow.
before the inspection. And I'm like, what? Like, why would you do that? But he was an investor. He was living in Vancouver. We got an accepted offer. He just turned all the stuff off because he's, I don't want to pay for it anymore. And then we go through and they did as much of an inspection as they can, but we can't test the electrical. We couldn't test the furnace. We couldn't test the AC. But knowing that, I was like, we need an extension. I was like, get all of it turned back on. I was like, we're not removing subjects without. Turns out the AC was broken. And I'm like, that was going to be over $5,000 if my clients removed subjects, assumed responsibility for what could possibly be wrong with it, and then now all of a sudden they're on the hook for a new air conditioning unit in BC, not BC, because I guess Vancouver and everything doesn't usually use AC, but like in the interior with a newborn baby. I'm like, that would have been, I would not be doing my job
Wow.
if that happened. So yeah, I think that it's obviously like really important to get your inspection. I want to ask you this too, because this is something that I do. I don't know if you run into a lot of agents in the Lower Mainland that do this. Pre-inspections. I
Mm.
love pre-inspections.
Are you guys doing a lot of those?
I do a lot of them. I don't know if a lot of agents do. That's something that we coach to, because your job as representing the seller is to keep more money in their pocket at the end of the day. So if I can say, hey, let's do our due diligence up front, make sure that everything is good to go with the house before it hits the market. That way, when you get an accepted offer, and they do their own home inspection, we don't have our backs against the wall. We don't feel like we're backed into a corner and we have to negotiate X amount of dollars off the price in order to keep it going after you get an accepted offer on another place, right? Like you don't want to be in a vulnerable place when someone comes back and says they want to renegotiate the
Yeah.
price after the inspection. So I love the pre-inspections because if we find something, we can fix it. And if we don't find something, now we have an inspection report to be able to give to potential buyers, because that just keeps the process super smooth. There's actually been occasions where we have found things in advance. And we know that sometimes buyers can blow things out of proportion. Even with me representing buyers, it can be blown out of proportion, right? For example, I had a client who had termites historically. They ended up having it all remediated, that it all signed off on, but it wasn't something that I knew about. They didn't say anything to me when we did the evaluation. And then we did the pre-inspection and it popped up that they had termites in the past. Again, it was remediated, but it was a conversation that we were able to have then. And I had the termite inspector come through again, make sure everything was good, provide us a letter so that when we did get an offer in the future, we were able to say, hey, this is a thing. Before you write your offer, I want you to know about it because I don't want it to be a problem and a hiccup in the future. And I have a letter saying that it's fine. But I do love the
Nice.
pre-inspection, and I think it's something really great that other agents should be doing for their clients as well, because you guys find the things that nobody else would find. Like people don't crawl in their attics. People don't go into the crawl spaces. Like you can find things super easily.
Yeah, yeah, you'd be amazed how many owners don't know what they have, right? Like when they're living in the house for 30 years and they go, "Hey, I've never actually been in the attic." That actually happens a lot. We'll turn on something in the basement and they'll go, "Oh yeah, I've never actually used that." Oh wow, okay. Glad we were here.
Yeah, or they didn't know the exhaust fan was blown off, and then now they have some organic matter, as you guys call it,
Organic
growing in the
matter.
attic,
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, we
right? And
always like
so,
to use our terminology.
but you want to find those things beforehand. If you find it first, then we can fix it.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. I definitely see the value in listing inspections. We advertise as doing it. We get a few of them per year, but it's not a huge part of our business. It might just be maybe the real estate climate down here. I'm not sure what it is, but I've done some with some real estate teams and we were able to catch some serious problems that would have completely derailed a deal. We don't really have termites down here. They don't like the wet weather, but it's a little cold for them. But up there, you
Yeah.
guys got a lot of them. But we had a few where one I'm thinking of is in Vancouver, East Vancouver. There was a house for sale, and the front of the crawl space, they had a bunch of storage items in there, and they'd lived in the house for years. And when I actually went and looked behind the storage items, and there were carpenter ants that had eaten away the whole front pony wall of the house, and it was absolutely would have killed a deal. It was in a tough market. The house is a little bit of a higher price point, and if they brought in another inspector, they would have negotiated big off of that price or just walked away.
Yeah.
And we were able to find it, and then they repaired it, and it wasn't that much. It was thousands, but it wasn't like $50,000. And they repaired this wall. They had all the contractors give the invoices. They were able to give the paperwork to the buyers. The buyers ended up doing their own home inspection, found nothing that I hadn't found, and then the deal went smoothly, and there was no 11th hour negotiation. So they were really happy with that. And then they started calling me for pre-listing inspections after that, and that went really well. Yeah, definitely the value's there. I like doing them. They're a lot of fun. And yeah, they're not quite as popular here, but yeah, definitely like
I think as the
for those.
market shifts, it'll probably become more of a thing again, right? I feel like everything ebbs and flows. When we're in a seller's market, buyers don't have as much leverage, but with the market transitioning as buyers get a little bit more leverage, it would make sense for sellers to buffer that. So I think
Yeah,
it could be a thing happening again in the future.
definitely.
I can't believe how quickly our conversation has gone. I knew
That
that
was
this was
quick.
going to happen. I knew that this was going to happen, but I did want to ask you one more question before we have to wrap up, because I think this one it's a good one. What are some red flags that you think that realtors and consumers should look for during their initial walkthroughs?
Red flags to do with the house, right?
Yep.
Okay,
What
yeah.
should you look for? Like when you're going to buy a house, what are things that you would advise people to take a look at?
Yeah, great question. So use your instinct. When you go to a property like you with the air conditioner, it didn't work, that the electricity being shut off. Ask yourself why. Why is the electricity off?
Yeah.
How much does it cost to keep electricity on? Is it $100 a month? Maybe, if the house is nobody's living there. Ask yourself. I can think of one I did in Surrey where the owner was there during the inspection. He was super nervous. He followed us around. He kept telling us we
Weird.
couldn't get into certain areas. And it just so happens that the attic and the master bedroom, there was no furniture basically on the top floor whatsoever. He was living there by himself. Big house, 4,000 square feet. And just so happens that in the master closet, it was just piled high with storage items right in front of the access hatch to the attic. So this guy clearly was hiding something. And I really don't like to judge people and say, oh, he's hiding something, because sometimes they're not. They're just ignorant. But in this case, he was clearly trying to conceal something. We ended up going up to the attic, and the house was an ex-grow op. It was like a marijuana grow operation. The whole basement, they had run ducting and modified all the wiring, and all the venting had been run out through the attic. Attic was packed with mold. It was a complete mess.
Oh my God.
And so use your instinct. Biggest red flag: if the seller's jittery and demands to be in charge of the process or is all over the inspector. I don't know how things are up there. We really don't recommend sellers be there
Yeah,
when the inspector's there, but
I've never had anything like that happen before. Usually we do ask people to leave, but like the seller can be sued for that. I don't even understand why he thought that, or why they thought that could be a thing they could get away with. Like, what is happening? But
yeah, absolutely.
anyways, but no kidding, use your instincts for sure.
Use your instincts. Yeah. If you get a bad feeling, and I can't tell you how many times a client will call us ahead of the inspection, they'll say, have a close look at this one. There's some weird stuff going on. I just got a bad feeling when I walked in. Hey, you know what? I really believe that people have a good sense about that, because a lot of the times that we get those emails or calls, we'll go in and there is a major problem in the house, and
There was
they could
one that,
sense it.
yeah, there was one that happened to me. They ended up having this big kind of storage area down in the basement locked. And we were like, why is this locked? That's weird. Find out later there's a massive cistern in the basement because it was in like a rural area and they were on a well, and turns out they didn't have enough water, but they
Yeah,
didn't have
usually you
enough
would
control.
cistern a well to get like a buffer.
So they didn't want us to see the cistern. So they had it locked.
Wow.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
you sneaky. Ah,
Sneaky.
yeah, I like, yeah, use your instinct. I think it's important. Make sure you actually get into all the rooms.
Yeah. If you get a bad feeling about it and there's no trust with the seller, that's probably the biggest red flag you can have.
Mm.
Yeah.
I like it. I also make sure, again, I'm not an inspector, but I do, when I walk through, I do make sure to like look at like the age of the hot water tank, because that's something that pops up in insurance, right? Check the age of the furnace, because even though it works, I don't like to fix things that aren't broken, but we do have an estimated life expectancy, and it's easier to negotiate the price based off of the things you can find due to reasonable inspection at your first glance than it is to try and get a reduction after the fact. Yeah, there's like a number of things. Check and see if it's poly B plumbing. Again, not the end of the world, but you want to have like your expectations set that these things exist. So I do think it's
Yeah.
important to check all the rooms, make sure you're paying attention to things, and have like knowledge about it. I don't care if you're a realtor, you should still have some form of a knowledge, like you are in the industry of selling houses.
Yeah, yeah. We work with some agents where they've followed us on so many inspections, and they've attended so many inspections that they almost could do an inspection themselves. But yeah,
Because we
I'm
don't
surprised.
suggest that, but you should have a good relationship with an inspector and be able to talk
Yeah.
intelligently about it for sure.
Yeah, and learn. Yeah, learn
You
from
should.
this.
They really should. Okay. We are at our time. I'm gonna have to bring you back for a round two of some rapid fire questions. But I want to thank you so much coming in today. I think this was extremely valuable. And I know you said that you don't have a extremely active Instagram, but at least you have one. I did go follow you yesterday, which we'll be friends moving forward. If you guys want to follow his Instagram page, it is David the Home Inspector, which is super easy to find. I love that. And then your website is Fairburn. Am I right?
Awesome.
See, look at me.
Good job.
Fairburn Home and Building Inspections. And I know that you're like located in the greater Vancouver area, but you cover the whole Lower Mainland, which is impressive. You have a team of people, which I think is great, because then there's a certain standard of inspections that you guys are doing. So thank you so much. You guys go give some love to David. And yeah, I hope that we can do a round 2 on the podcast with lots more questions.
Definitely. Looking forward to it.
That's a wrap on this episode of Real Estate Real Talk. Whether you're an agent building your business or a buyer or seller trying to get the real story, thanks for being here. If this episode gave you clarity, confidence, or just something to talk about, I'd love for you to follow, rate, and share the show. It helps more people find these conversations. If you have questions or want to connect, head over to SkyleighMcCallum.com or come hang out with me on Instagram. Thanks for listening, and I hope you catch the next episode on Real Estate Real Talk.